What is up, everybody? This is the pilot. This is the kickoff. This is the very, very beginning. Something that we've been wanting to do for quite a while. I have an incredible co-host with me. She and I are going to be co-piloting this thing, and we actually have a lot to share. So this is Pilot One, the Aligned Podcast, a structured production. Rebecca, how are you doing?
Good. Feeling great. How are you doing, Nick?
This has been a long time coming. After making a little bit of a transition away from being in it on the agency side, I've been trying to find a way to get back and get the learnings, especially as you're running our performance department, which is one of our highest growth areas. It's a little bit sentimental because that's the area that I used to be many, many moons ago. So I'll start off with just give me a little bit of a background, what you're doing, what you're focused on, and then I'll cover you on any gaps.
Sounds good. Yeah. I've been in Structured for about a year and a half now, managing the paid department, which is kind of a large department. There's lots of stuff going on. We're not just doing paid media. We're also doing UGC. We're doing affiliate. We're doing creative production. We're continuing to expand into new categories. Obviously, like TikTok's been a big focus for us as well recently with all the new technology they have. Outside of that, I'm also working on other side projects like our marketing strategy and product creation within Structured. So lots of fun things going on. I guess, Jack, what have you been working on?
This is the part that I get most interested in because our department has changed over time, because we've gone through, for a lot of people that don't know, we started Structure's pushing almost 10 years of being in the space, which is not many agencies can say that. And I think that's the value of us coming together and talking about this thing, because the reason why we call ourselves the Aligned Podcast, or just Aligned, is where we kind of settled upon, is because oftentimes you hear a lot of people talking about from the brand perspective, from the operator's perspective on the brand side, or agencies, and they're just sharing strategies. It's just basically strategy, which I think is important. I think it's valuable, but very rarely are you going to get two different people, one coming from the brand side where I get to live right now being at Brez, and you coming from being in it deep on the agency side, supporting on being on behalf of brands. I think there's a really cool thing to talk about, because we have a tagline that we're working on. This is not perfect, but this is the podcast that's bringing the brand and the agency into true alignment. So growth isn't just overall one-sided, it's shared. And you see this all the time. And I wanted to ask you and start you off with this, which is when a lot of new relationships begin, it's sort of like, what are you going to do for me in the first couple of days to justify the dollars I have to spend on this with you? And we're coming into pretty much a lull in, I guess you'd say, the performance, because it's right before Q4. And we'll get into that in the first episode. But right now with the new partnerships and kind of within the agency, what are you feeling from the brand side that you're kind of working with?
There's obviously a lot of pressure put on the agencies to fix businesses immediately. And that's what we're trying to strive for, that sort of level of performance and perfection, which can be really difficult. But we're really putting all of our resources into all the brands that are working with us to try and actually move them forward in a meaningful way, not just on the paid side, but on the whole business. Because as we've basically found out in the last couple of years, we can only impact so much of the business by just focusing on paid. We have to be really holistic in what we're thinking about. So I feel like when brands are coming to us, we're really trying to empathize with them as much as possible, understand what their point of view is and how we can get there. Even if it's not a paid strategy, we'll still tell them any strategy that could get them out of their situation. And that's really what we're focused on right now.
The fact that it used to be, so this is when I stepped out of the day-to-day, I would say like 2014, Jake into more like the CEO overseeing role, and the departments were fully established at this point. It was more of like, hey, I'm a really good specialist on the paid side, and you're just hired to run Meta. You're just hired to run Google. And where we've really found our ability to be involved in things is being a total growth partner. But yet I'm on the brand side over here at Brez. I'm sitting here going, I just actually only want specialists in paid media. I only want a really good retention marketer. And I don't think that's how a lot of other brands think. And I think mainly because we come from media, we as the owners or partners of this get it from a executional standpoint. Do you feel where you're currently looking at, this is kind of why I'm excited about this podcast, I get to understand what problems you're dealing with and what these brands come to bring you guys with, because you're working on products within Structure, which is obviously very important. We got to develop those things for better service to the brands. But is there one thing that you're like, I wish brands were more prepared when they came to an agency? What would you hope that they had prepared?
When brands are coming to us, I feel like it would be really helpful to understand all the context that we possibly might need to know. I feel like a lot of times what we're doing is we're onboarding with a new client. we feel like we understand what we need to be doing because we've had a financial analysis. We understand what their goals should be. But then we get into it and we find that, oh, all these things were tested in the past, or there were these issues or things that happened a year ago that were actually really bad but never got addressed. So we're kind of going back, and I feel like I'm like Sherlock Holmes with a magnifying glass trying to uncover some crazy situation that happened. So honestly, the most information, I'd rather get too much information than less. And I feel like then we're going to be more equipped to do our job and actually be helpful versus like finding something random, asking a question, and then the client's like, oh yeah, we had that happen. And I was like, oh, well, that's actually super relevant. So that's the sort of stuff that we're dealing with right now. But I definitely feel like the team is becoming more well equipped to ask those sorts of leading questions to figure those things out sooner than later.
Do you think right now there's people that they come into partnerships, even at our size, because we usually deal with mid-sized to larger market, and they don't really actually know their numbers or their acquisition targets?
100%. Most people
Still?
do not understand what their CAC targets should be. Still, as part of our onboarding process, as of maybe 2 quarters ago, we now,
Shocking.
every single client is required to go through a financial analysis where we tell them what their CAC targets or mayor targets need to be, which has been very centering when going into an account now, because a lot of times clients said, oh, we think this should be the goal, or we don't know what the goal is, and then everyone's just kind of scrambling. So at least now we force it on all clients, because it is literally, we can't do our job, as you know, without a CAC target. We're just kind of floundering, hoping that things look good.
I think we'll get more into those, because we're going to pull every week, either every week or every other week, we're going to be pulling specific cases that some of the brands are kind of bring to the agency to try and problem solve through. And then on the brand side, I have requests from my internal team and projects that we're ongoing building, from the subscription to the retention to the acquisition, from the landing page side. And so we're going to try to go back and forth and debate, like, what would be the benefit to the agency supporting here, or what would the benefit be to the brand to actually let the agency do what they do best, which is something that I have a lot of strong opinions on, especially if you hire someone to do a job for you and you don't allow them to do the job in which you've hired them for. Why are you doing it? And it's going to be very contentious across the board. And so I think that's a really good learning. So I'm excited to explore that as we kind of dig into it. But this is something that I'm most looking forward to. What do you think you hope to uncover with the rest of this type of podcast as we dive into this experiment?
I think for me personally, I don't know if I could speak for the whole agency, but for me personally, what I'm looking for is to really understand what the brand's point of view is on why certain questions are asked and why you might be looking at something a certain way that maybe I never thought to look at. I've been on the agency side for so long now. I did start on the brand side, but that was before performance marketing was really the way it is today, which is so structured and it's just like it's a behemoth now. There's so much you can do. So I've just been on the agency side for so long that sometimes I miss the contextual information that could maybe help me be better at my job, help me serve clients better. So I feel like having this sort of back and forth will uncover something that I maybe didn't think of in a certain way that before, that can ideally improve who I am as a marketer long term.
I literally went through that this week. And so without me getting too deep into it, because I just want this to be a brief pilot that lets everybody know what they're about to be uncovering. I can't wait to talk about the problems I'm dealing with internally because of an inventory restraint, or because of a product release, or because of a new vendor that we have to get up and running, and we have to provide them a bunch of more context. And so those are the things that being on the agency side up until really last year, where I really was like, oh, I actually need to step up and do this. I've always been on acquisition. Now I'm head of retention. And I think that relationship is weird too, because knowing paid media, knowing how performance works, but also now needing to pair it with holistic support, allow them to spend more money by having subscription or having better retention targets and metrics and pop-ups and understanding the flows and how deep they need to go. I think that's probably the coolest thing about being over here where I'm at, because now I can speak agency, I can live on the brand, and then I can go back and forth as I talk to, whether it's internal with you and your team, or it's a couple other younger agencies, kind of learning like, why am I not closing the deals or presenting the offer correctly? I had an incredible conversation with someone yesterday, and they're like, would you buy this? And I had to put my brand hat on. I go, I probably wouldn't, because why would I need to buy all this creative? I'm not spending enough money. Or actually, we already have this internally. Why would you position it and just giving me strategy? So there's a lot of these nuance that I hope to kind of share with you as we get to explore the growth on the brand side. So this is just a quick one, everybody. We're going to be putting this out every other week. And we come into Q4. So stay tuned as we get you guys back for us. Rebecca, it's good to see you. See you next week.
You too. Sounds good. Thanks, Nick.